All right. So thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Find Your Cause. In this episode, we have John Del Bello, who's the founder and CEO of BGiving. John, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. I'm excited to join you here in the podcast.
All right. Well, per usual, we like to get started with the mission of the organizations that we're interviewing. So, what is a mission of BGiving?
Sure. Our mission is to allow anybody to participate in philanthropy at the community level. And we know that for everybody, philanthropy is unique, right? You sort of follow your heart and where you like to lend your, whether it be legacy or participation or activation. And so our view is how do we build the single platform to allow that to occur while supporting the orgs in the community and engaging. And so we call it the 3 E's. It's engage, educate, and empower. And that's what we offer all users to basically connect nonprofits with their local community members and community members with the local nonprofits.
Yeah, we're going to dive into how you're actually doing this and all the work that's gone into it so far. But before we do, why you? What's your story and drive to want to be the founder and CEO?
So I got into philanthropy right after college, believe it or not, and I was involved in two different orgs immediately. One was the Diocese of New York had started a foundation that was basically serving all their inner city schools, 88 different inner city schools in some of the poorest neighborhoods in the 5 boroughs. And the Cardinal had started it in 1979. I joined it almost exactly 10 years later. It was 1990. It was just a very important thing because I found that once I first found out about the organization from my sister, they were literally transforming lives at a mass level. I mean, they were graduating, their school systems were graduating 97% to colleges in the poorest neighborhoods when the public schools were at 42%.
Jeez.
And the crazier thing was it was really about just funding and basically participation. So their organization had volunteers like myself, along with like junior board. I joined the junior board and other things and activities, and then also fundraising, obviously. And what got me the most interested was I started working at the company, first job out of college, and I noticed that the board and advisors of this org had some of the leadership of my company. And I was like, this is interesting. And I'm talking about for years, I could look back and see their reports. So I actually asked the president of the company, this is a major global corporation. I just asked, I somehow got a note to him and said, would you sponsor a table for us, the people that are actually doing the volunteer work and wanting to support this? Because I think young people should be engaged, not just the high level executives paying, it's $1,000 a seat, by the way, to these events.
Yeah.
And it's 600 people at the Waldorf Astoria. So he calls me into his office. The first thing he does is congratulates me. He shakes my hand. And he's like, we need more people like you in the world that actually stand up and want to make a difference and ask the hard questions and want to lead, and by doing new things and pushing the agenda, getting younger people engaged. So he loved it. So we sponsored a $10,000 table. I got 10 people from our company we're all first year, second year people. And so I ended up they ended up getting involved in the organization, right? Because they loved what's happening. And what blew us away was that first event we attended, 600 people in a room. Well, the dais had about 15 people besides the Cardinal, and none of them were not one was Catholic. Like it was just full, like the room was full of it was non-denominational. It was basically just understanding this organization changes education at such a high level for all these kids in the poorest neighborhoods. That's what's the most important. So that was interesting for me as a Catholic to see that. And it was very moving to see that it wasn't the religion that carried this organization. It was the importance of education and raising the opportunity level for the most poor. So then I also joined one of my friends I invited to that dinner, ended up telling me, I'm in an org I'd love you to be with. And I ended up joining his junior board. And that was Tony Duke's foundation, which was also inner city kids, also youth at risk. And so I was involved in them about 5 years. And the inner city one for about 15 years. And then I moved to Austin in 2009 and was involved in some ministries and different nonprofit work. And it turns out to be a much more spiritual thing for me because all of a sudden in 2016, I was at a very low point in my life and went through divorce, had full custody, lost my job because of that. The state wouldn't let me keep my job because I had full custody because I worked weekends, and ended up like at the bottom, like out of money,
Jeez.
out of unemployment, no job. I didn't know anybody here. It was very, it was really frustrating. So I ended up doing prayers, meditations, I guess you could say, for about 9 nights. And the 10th night, this was given to me in a dream. Then I was literally told, wake up to write it down. And then when I woke up, it gave me the download, and I just wrote for like 10 minutes straight. And I took my daughter's art sketch pad was sitting on the kitchen table. And I just, like, every time a thought came, I took a different color pen, because this was so streaming. Like, first of all, when you wake up from something like that, it's so like, you don't know what's happening, even though it's so powerful and so moving, but you're waking up and you're like, little, like, what the heck just went on? Right. And I'm like, they just told me, like, they're going to download, like, you know what I mean? And then it, like, happened. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And so next thing I know, I go back to bed. I got to get up at 6 a.m. for my kids' school. And the next morning I sit with my coffee and look at it. It's two sides of this huge art sketch pad. And I'm like, oh my God, I think this is the response to my prayers. This is so crazy. And literally, this is the crazier part, Joseph. I did nothing with it because I didn't know what to do. And I ended up getting hired a week later in the first interview. Just got hired. Boom. So all of a sudden it was on the back burner. And it comes to 2019. And I'm like, man, why did that happen to me? Like, I'm sort of challenging. Like, why did this happen to me? I've had some unemployment, some other challenges in my life. And I'm like, maybe this was something deeper that I need to examine. So I'm in this social impact networking group on Saturday mornings. They hold these meetings for 3 hours, 9 to 12. It's usually 50, 60 people. And it gave me the opportunity to open the door a little bit and just start sharing little bits and pieces of what this was. So lo and behold, it's like 2 months into it. And I swear, Joseph, every single person that I met were like, bro, nobody gets these opportunities in life. I suggest you pursue that, because that's like the gift from the universe. And you seem like the right person. So it was powerful. So it's 2019. I'm in the middle of reading a book, 3 books actually. So I'm reading You Are the Universe by Chopra, Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, and The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And it just, like, all congregates to, like, okay, now I know why I'm here on the planet. Like, this is my purpose. I need to bring a platform that replaces the social dilemma, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the TikToks, with a social impact platform that operates the same way, but it's about impact, making a difference, doing good in the world, allowing anybody to participate, and basically supporting those orgs that seem to always need support, like at the community level.
Well, that's a founding story if I've ever heard one.
Wow. I get my hairs on end right now just talking about it.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Do
wild.
you still have that sheet of paper saved or anywhere by chance, framed at least?
It's sitting right here. Yeah, I do. I kept it, and
Yep.
and believe it or not, it was interesting for me because that was just the telltale. Right. It gave me the objective and the big picture view and like high level. Right. Like, and what was interesting to me was after I started doing research, I was about 3 months in and found some very telling, maybe it was 6 months in, very telling data. And the crazier part was, like, the things they told me that it needed to happen weren't actually viable till 2019 when I started doing the research. So the public data wasn't, and the data wasn't public. The fintech didn't exist. A lot of the research proving the things that we were talking about wasn't being shared in public light. So all of a sudden, things were uncovered in that 3-year span of me not doing anything that actually made the case for, like, why this is needed. I mean, the Social Dilemma movie came out a year after this Dream, the movie on Netflix. So it's so wild. Cambridge Analytica, all this stuff.
Wow. Okay. So let's get into BGiving then. So you did the mission statement. What were some of the initial activities that you did in 2019 to get things kicked off after that 3-year pause?
Yeah. So we took the first 18 months, we tried to focus, because what was told to me in the Dream was 2 organizations needed to play part. You needed a nonprofit because you needed to accept donations. And that was going to be Change Unlimited, was going to be the face to the public, which represented, pocket change leads to real change unlimited. So that's why it's a micro donation based platform. And then Infinite Giving was the name because it's infinitely giving technology, resources, and actually, like, the ability for that nonprofit platform to exist in the world. So that's what that was, infinitely giving that technology and iterations and innovations to philanthropy, social good. And actually, it was explained to me that would be the first step. And the second step would be a matching platform for social good for profits. And it would be micro investing in social good companies. So that's another iteration we'll carry forward in about a year or so. But and then what we basically identified was, when we got all the research, we said, look, let's do some market tests. So we went to universities. We went actually to one platform, and it gave us almost every single internship we got in 2020, 2021 actually, because 2020 we spent, unfortunately, with the pandemic.
Yep.
We got our 501c3 status, and we couldn't get anywhere with funding. We actually reached out to 37 of the top 40 foundations that fund tech in philanthropy, and because of the
Yep.
pandemic, they wouldn't have conversations with us, and we were
Yeah.
brand new, 501c3. So 2021, we did all this research with 5 different universities, 40 different students. And the crazier part about it was that every single student that chose our program, they chose us over a paid internship that showed us that they really did care about like what our mission was.
Well,
And then it really came clear because these people, and we had MBA students, master students, undergrads, they all were like, this needs to exist. This needs to exist in the world, and we want to be part of this. So they did the market and tech studies and data analysis and computation stuff. I mean, just amazing things they did. We actually still have one kid from then still working with us pro bono. He graduated a master's degree. He's been literally working with us for 4 years for pro bono. Yeah, 3 years, right? 21 to 24. So, so then we took that and formed Infinite Giving, the firm, to actually start building the tech. So in 21, we identified the requirements and we built the prototype. By 22, we were in an incubator accelerator, and unfortunately went through the 6 months only to find them go bankrupt the month after.
Yep.
And the sad part was we were one of 5 of 150 nonprofits, startups that were handpicked to be part of this Activate program from Amazon. So that was the blessing in disguise. We got that, which was beneficial for our tech. But yeah, just like nobody got put in front of investors. And of course, the war had started in Ukraine. 22 was just a horrible year to talk to anybody about investment.
Yeah.
So then we focused on building the app from the prototype model because we'd had enough feedback and interactions. And we did that into the early part of 23. And 23, the developer we hired was actually a great guy, did most of it for free. But we just got to a certain point where we're trying to white label it because we thought that was going to be more the quicker way to market.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, we recognized that it's actually better we do this and prove the model because it's like when we looked at it as it's like an Instagram meets a Schwab because it's impact investing, right? Like think about it this way. If you look at the platform as an Instagram type in social circumstances, but then put it in the philanthropic aspect and say, well, let's allow anybody to be an impact investor. Because whether you're a volunteer, you give $5, you give $100, you're still an impact investor in your community. That's the way we look at it. So we actually track it as an ROI as well, and return on impact tracker. And so we thought, okay, let's now take it to our white label, from white labeling to our own. And that took us a couple of months because we did want to test. We had some unique things, and we spent most of the latter part of 23 actually building that version like 1.5 out.
Yep.
And then we started to have success with talking to nonprofits and other orgs and actual people. And when we tested the version in the public, we actually had UT students take the version out on demo on their phones. And we just said, go to where you think, like ask different demographics, go to nonprofits. And the crazier part of that study was, so we expected a high number of conversions to use the app, which was 85% of those in philanthropy wanted to use it. The shocker was 95% of people who weren't active in philanthropy wanted to use it. And that to me shows that there's a huge potential in getting people engaged that aren't currently active. And that's a big shift for the planet.
Yeah. I feel like you've been able to gather a lot of data and find data yourself too. What have been the reasons that you think from the data that people haven't been as engaged as maybe they want to? And how are you planning to unlock that?
Yeah, great question. One of the things we did with the media company last summer was we had the app in a form, right, that was tested. That was the 9585. And we had that app just with the media companies in Seattle. They basically handed the phone to about 8 different people. So it's 4 nonprofit leaders and 4 individuals, different demographics, by the way. And all they did is have them experience what was there, like the two sides. So one is a desktop for nonprofits and one's a mobile app for users. And the crazier part is all they did is hand it to them and say, what were your thoughts? And they were like, oh my God, this makes philanthropy so much easier. Like I can find the orgs I care about. I can actually participate. I can do different things. I see my impact. We're tracking the broader impact. So like if you're on our app, like say you're on it, Joseph, and you asked 10 of your friends and 5 got on the app. We're tracking all 5 of their activity and showing you what's happening. So all of a sudden, you not only see what you're doing in impact, you see everybody you've invited impact because we give you a shareable link. And we do the same thing for nonprofits. So nonprofits have a shareable link. They share to their donor base that's already existing. So they don't have to like give us their data. We just so here's your shareable link, give it to your donors. They get on the app. They get insights and data related to what they're doing for them. So, hey, you said you're my supporter for 5 years. Well, we just had a fundraiser. You didn't even send anything out on the app, right? Like we can track this for them, which is not only accountability, it's transparency. That's really the key thing here. And then on top of that, I think we found that for young people especially, they don't like there's two types of things that exist in philanthropy market space right now, which is charitable giving platforms like a GoFundMe and Roundup. That doesn't really do anything in terms of like you don't get your impact tracking. You don't have any sense of what happened. And you're really not connected to the nonprofit. You're just literally donating. The other side is you get all these SaaS companies, right? So the Blackbauds and the Bonterras, and all they do is sell software to nonprofits. They cover maybe 15,000 nonprofits. We have 66,000 in our database. And again, they're not connecting anything to the donors or connecting the nonprofits in a community manner. So we looked at it, said, well, if there's social platforms that exist that obviously work in bringing things together, uniting, right? So we all know we watch the TikTok video and laugh because it's silly, or we watch an Instagram story about something we want to grow in our life, like we want to learn something, right? Get educated on something, or you're on Facebook and you're sharing your family, stuff that you just went on vacation, right? We know this works, but then we said, why can't we bring that thought process and technology and simple solution to philanthropy and make it easy? So anybody on either side, like you could be 14 and use our app. That's how we've designed it. Like a nonprofit, it's not about the tech. It's about simple tools. And the same thing for users. We want to make it easier. You're on it, you're off it. But the thing is, when you're on it, you're going to get actual physical benefits from being on it, because the side of giving and generosity and acting in a generous way and giving, that actually shifts. Neuroscience has proven it. We have it in our database that it shifts your brain and heart coherence. Your body actually regulates in a different way. You actually go into a positive frame. Your body actually benefits from the hormones being released, by the way. It's not like it's just the hormones get released. It's like it benefits the body. So that's an amazing science that will happen to people on the app. And so we're like, well, why can't we take people from the experience of like the negatives of the social media that exists? And if Instagram right now, I get 10 ads for every one good post or story, reel, right? And we're like, we'll never do ads. Obviously, that's not the goal. The goal is to be on it when you want to be active. And when you're not on it, it's okay, because you're still participating and you're going to still see impact grow, and you're still going to get notified when there's a volunteer opportunity or a fundraiser or whatever. And we have a lot of things in the roadmap. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Have you, in your user studies that you've done, did you get any feedback from anyone like, I could see people seeing that and be like, well, what am I doing with my life? Or what am I doing to give back? Like, crap. Like, I feel bad.
That's right. What's interesting? I think that the telling part of that stat, that was the 95 not involved actively in philanthropy, I think what spoke to them was that we made it easy and very straightforward and transparent. Because people, remember, there's a long line of fraud going on in philanthropy. I mean, I was a victim of 9/11, and like literally $3 billion in fraud occurred from 9/11, the 6 months after the event, right? $3 billion in fraud from fake organizations claiming they were helping victims and stuff like this, right? And we know after 2008, the financial crisis, 300,000 nonprofits went under because the financial crisis. That was not good. And in 2021, we found out there was, somewhere in the range of 500 to 600 million in fraud due to COVID. Again, orgs acting like they were. So our whole point is we're only using validated orgs from the IRS database. So they're in existence. They're filing 990s on a regular basis. That was really important. And I think the other fact was that we're showing impact stories. That's part of the goal. So we're actually testing right now. We're going to do an AI tool to actually make it simple for any nonprofit to take whatever content they already have and convert it to a story that's emotional, connecting, and impactful, so they don't have to spend that time or resources or even money creating media. The tool will do that for them from their content, which is super exciting, because for me, the nonprofits have enough on their plate. How can we make it easy for them to just get on and use our app for 15 minutes a month, maybe, see insights one time. But the thing is, they can collaborate with other nonprofits. All their board can see insights. So if they I'll give you a perfect example. you're a nonprofit, you're trying to get 200 people to your event, right? And let's say you have 500 in your donor base. So the app could be a tool that, number one, you get to your donor base and say, let's try to raise money. So not everybody needs to join the event. It's 200 people, but try to expand on that, right? So they can share a link automatically. Everybody gets it. They can share it in their circles. They can see who shared it and how many people opened the link, right? Which is great. Great insights. Next, they have the event. They can record the top 2 minutes of the speech by the main speaker, add the video, click the link again for fundraising, have it go out. Everybody that gets that can then participate. They can see what the key highlight of that event was about, and boom, activate. Choose to join the fundraiser. Whether you do not $5 or $20 doesn't really matter. But the point is, now you've reached a mass that's greater than just the 200 at your event. Other ways are like, the bigger way I see this too is like, there's so many orgs that are doing the exact same thing in a different location. And so why not collaborate? And there's so many different ways you could do that. You could do a co-marketing effort, right? You could do, hey, I'm in Atlanta, we're $250,000. We're trying to get to like $500,000 because we know there's that much need. Like the recipients, we're not reaching all those recipients. We need to grow. They can go on our app and find another org that's at $600,000, $800,000 in revenue and go, how did you get there? How did you grow? How did you, like this is the things we're talking about, solving a lot of the problems that nobody's really been attending to.
Wow. What are some of the next things that you have on the plate here for the remainder of the year then?
Sure. So we're currently doing the beta right now, where we're having 10 organizations participate, give us feedback on the nonprofit side. And we're going to do between 50 and 100 individuals for the mobile app side. We'd like to have that done in tandem with getting the app that we have existing into the Apple Google stores for approval. Because once that's approved, we can just flash the update from the feedback from the beta and have that live hopefully in September. And then, we want to be active by time we get to October through December is the biggest season of philanthropy. And if we can get our app in front of, we just talked to a media company that wants to get us in front of 1.5 million views in the first month, because they were like, we've never seen anything like this. And what you're doing is a game changer for the planet. So that it was really powerful. And we get this a lot from people. Like, we just joined Advisory Cloud, and, we were hoping to just get some advisors. And we had 80 sign up in the first 2 weeks. And the girl at Advisory Cloud, who's been there 7 years, was like, dude, we're lucky to get 10 people in 6 months to a company. Like, you're obviously touched a strong point in people's hearts, that they understand what you're doing. What you're solving is major, and people want to be part of it. And it was like the who's who, by the way, of advisors. Like, we're looking at these people, and it's like 25 years, 20 years, like all experts. And we're just like, wow, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
So we're excited by that. And then we're going to do a crowdfunding, because we feel like I'd rather be funded at the $5 level by 2,000 people than 2 investors telling me I got to give them X return in 4 years, because that's not what we're about. We're not about that. We're about making impact. Even our model of revenue is different. Like, we looked at it and said, let's just cover all our costs up to X, and anything above that, we're going to give back in what we call a reserve. Back to the marketplace. So I'll give you an example. This is very unique, but let's say it's 5 years from now and we're in 50 cities, and I'll just use a couple examples. So you live, let's say, in Atlanta. I live in Austin. There's another, LA, New York, Chicago. So we look at and we say, okay, we're getting 2 million in revenue from this city, 4 million in this city, 3 million, right? Well, it's a percent of total. So we then take the reserve, go back to the percentages applied, and go back to those cities and say, how can we best deploy this for impact? So it could be, we go to Atlanta and they say, man, we got all these inner city schools and they don't have iPads, the students, right? Poor neighborhoods, right? Whatever. We go to New York and they say, we have all these shelters and we just can't supply enough clothes to the homeless, or whatever, right? Whatever that may be. Maybe it's in Phoenix, it's mental health. We'd love to have every teenager in high school get a mental health counselor, right? Because we know this is a growing problem. So it's all these ways we can redeploy the capital we've gained. And by the way, we're the lowest operating cost, by the way. We're 1% out of nonprofits, and we're only $4 a year for donors. So we did this model on purpose. We do not want to be about a cost element. We want to be about redeploying is how we look at it. So we need to operate. Obviously, we need to keep iterating and building, which takes a team and talent. But hopefully AI will help us with some things. But that's the goal, is to just redeploy capital and into impact, and then again iterated into the social good, for-profit, micro investing. And if the goal of both of those is basically to have the same participant, where they might deploy 500 in investment and get 100 back in return that they put into the philanthropy side.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. People that are listening and curious and want to get engaged, can they get engaged at this point? If so, how
Yes,
so?
yes. Yeah. So they can definitely visit we have a web page set up, and it's basically, our web page is BGiving.one, and it's backsplash, and it's Find Your Cause, or related to this podcast. And they'll be able to, one, visit our website, see our knowledge base. They'll be able to join a beta if they would like to. They're going to be able to get on a wait list if they'd like to wait for the app in the app stores.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be an option for crowdfunding. So all those should be present by the time this podcast is active.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Is there anything you want to leave us with, or anything that we didn't cover before we wrap up?
The only thing I can mention is, I'm going to share a quick story because it just happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to be invited to Harvard to give a presentation, and it was a week-long certification for executives that were basically getting a certificate, in a slight way, a degree, but really a certificate of global finance and economics. And I was the only one chosen to provide global philanthropy as the subject matter. So they had 8 Harvard professors, 2 wealth managers. One was a very specific type of private wealth management. One was very more like a offshore type of high level investment strategy stuff. And some of these people were there, had their kids with them because school had just ended, and so they're like sort of traveling together. So kids were in the same room. It's about 16 people, leaders, and maybe another 5-6 people on top of that. And I gave my presentation, and we didn't even really say BGiving. We just talked about the state of philanthropy, how Harvard was founded as a nonprofit, and that nonprofits matter in the world because they bring social impact to a level that really it's not found anywhere else. You don't find it in capitalism. You don't find it in socialism. And literally, I just spoke that if they liked what we were explaining in the state of philanthropy, that there's a way we could create a new model, right? A new paradigm, basically, in philanthropy, which is we didn't say BGiving. We just talked about what we're doing. I got a standing ovation, and they asked for pictures. And then that Friday, I got awarded for the best presenter out of everybody that week. And I was like, this is interesting to me. And so I went and talked to some of the young students that were the children of these people. And then I went, as I was on Harvard for a couple of days, I just would pick kids walking across campus, say, hey, I know it's the 20th anniversary of Facebook, but what do you think about this? And we just said, this is what we're doing, BGiving. And like every single person we talked to was like, please get this to the market. We want something like this in the world. That has to exist. This is amazing. I love what you're doing. Don't stop, and just make it happen. And that was literally what we heard from every single person we asked. And it's like, that to me is powerful, in that we're just sharing a mission that we're carrying forward, but it seems to have its own attraction.
I think it's in the back of people's minds. Yeah. I think people know how toxic social media can be and is. That's right. And they're looking for like an alternative, right? Even if that's the framing.
And that makes you feel good, and you're making a difference in the world, no matter what you do. Look, we're happy if you get on our app and you're 21, volunteer for the next year. Pick a couple of orgs. The crazier part about it is the average person active supports 4 to 6 nonprofits. It's not 1 or 2. It's 4 to 6 is the average. The other thing is, it doesn't matter about the amount of money. It's about what you want to do. Like, if you want to just give $5 a quarter, give $5 a quarter. I'm not going to pressure you to give $100. That's not what we're about. You know what I mean? It's like, just be a participant. And we know there's going to be people that are going to want to fundraise. Like, they'll lead. They'll go set their tribe afire and say, hey, I want to raise money for this org, right? That's great. You can do it through our app. We're going to have people that are going to say, I just want to, pick my 5 favorite orgs and do quarterly recurring, right? So everybody gets $5 every quarter. This is the different ways we want to activate. So whatever people feel in their hearts they want to do, the app's going to let them do that.
Well, John, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Folks that are listening, get engaged. We'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes. And I'm sure John will be more than happy to answer any follow-up questions people have about this amazing project and app that's going to be coming here very soon.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, Joseph. Super appreciate your time and asking some good questions. And I wish you the best on your podcast and keep doing good work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.